Mr. Mayor, Mr. Secretary, and just maybe Mr. President, you do us all a great honor being here and letting us welcome you back to one of your homes. Estás en tu casa otra vez. Friends, colegas, let's welcome Julián Castro back to the park.
Yes. Well, Fred, I don't know how I follow that. I know you have a lot of practice, but thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias for that introduction, and more importantly, thank you for all of your leadership, not only here at the university, but throughout your career in helping to create opportunity for others. You have led by example, so thank you. I want to thank also all of the organizing committee. Raise your hand if you helped put this together. Thank you all. I want to give a quick shout out also to Jim Montoya, who I know y'all are going to hear from. I think it's fair to say that many of us would not be here without Jim. Are doing, I know are going to do to create the kind of opportunities that have made so many of our careers possible. Gracias. Of course to Francis Morales as well. Someone who has lifted the community up. You know, to say a motherly figure would say it well, but so much more than that. A fighter, an advocate, someone who has pushed the agenda. I want to thank Francis. I also want to thank some folks that are here and some that I know may not be with us. I know Al Camarillo is here for his advocacy over the years and the presence that he's been. Of course, Cecilia and Tony and Luis Braga. His son, Bernard, is here, but he was a role model for many of us and a mentor while we were here. There he is, somewhere. He's hiding over there. And to each and every one of you, it is amazing to be here at the inaugural Stanford Latino Alumni Association. I got invited in 2013 to go and speak at the USC Latino Alumni Association gathering. And they did a fantastic job, and I thought, why not at Stanford? I have no doubt that even though this is starting in 2019, that soon enough this is going to be better than USC and better than any other university across the country. To all of the men and women who are here today, who in your own right I know have been trailblazers in your family, a lot of people who are the first in their family to go to college, who came from the toughest of circumstances, probably with few role models, who had gone to places like Stanford or even gone to college before, who clawed their way up, went and figured it out in high school, right? Went the extra mile so that you could have the opportunity that all of us had to come to this great university. And then when you were here, many of y'all didn't stop there. Didn't stop with your own studies, but also made the extra effort to be active, to volunteer at East Palo Alto, to tutor students, or to help move things along on campus. I watched the video of the strike hunger strike from 1994, and so proud of all of the activism that happened back then. I have to admit that being here today is quite different from how I got here with my brother Joaquin in 1992. I remember that we got here on a Wednesday, and we were staying with some friends of my mother's who lived in the East Bay. We landed and we drove out to the East Bay to stay at their home, and got out of the car, and as soon as I got out of the car, I see this 3-year-old little boy running down the street, totally naked, no clothes on, and a dad running behind him. And I thought to myself, we're in California. The next day, on a Thursday, we got here, Joaquin and I got here, we had never been to the campus, like I bet a lot of folks here had not been to the campus. I think it was only the second time we'd been on an airplane. Our dad had bought the cheapest tickets that he could find. We stopped in El Paso, San Diego, and on Southwest Airlines. We had cried all the way to El Paso, so much that the flight attendant had to bring us those rough napkins, you know, the cocktail napkins. When we stepped out, you know, of the car, they had the table there, and they yelled out our name. And I was living in Wilbur and Soto, and my brother was living in Sarah. And later in the day, after a couple of hours, we went to the computer room in my dorm and tried to use the computer. And my brother saw the mouse like in front of him, and he didn't know how to use it. He turned the mouse over and he started to roll the ball on the screen. That was our first lesson at Stanford, how to properly use a mouse. Somebody was kind enough to point it out that was also in the computer room, you know. So it's safe to say, I think, in my case, I'm sure in the case of a lot of folks here, that we have come a very long way. And I was telling you this yesterday. I know that yesterday a lot of people had the chance to share their journey. Mine started with my grandmother that I grew up with, who came from Mexico, the state of Coahuila, when she was 7 years old, with her little sister, because their parents had died, and in 1922 their closest relatives took them across the border at Eagle Pass and ended up on the west side of San Antonio. She grew up as a maid. Didn't finish elementary school and worked as a maid, a cook, and babysitter, and raised my mom as a single parent. My mom raised my brother and me as a single parent after our parents split up at the age of 8. We were products of the public schools in San Antonio, the Edgewood Independent School District and San Antonio Independent School District. And I can recall April 3rd, 1992, that spring when we were getting the letters back from universities, running out to the mailbox with my brother. We had, in the fall of 1991, looked up the U.S. News and World Report and basically got fee waivers to apply to like the top 10 or 11 schools. So we ran out to the mailbox and we found these 2 packets in the mailbox. And you remember that you wanted to be a packet and not a letter. No thanks or no thanks. You remember that, Jim, I'm sure. Probably got a lot of angry parents that called after they got the letter. The letter on the top of the packet said, "Congratulations and welcome to the Stanford class of 1996. And you know, I wish that I'd had one of the cell phone cameras that all of us have today. They're like the bane of our existence, right? So that I could have taken a picture of my grandmother's face, or video. Because I'm sure, like so many of your parents and grandparents, she never could have imagined that kind of opportunity would be available for her child, for her grandchildren. And everybody was so, so happy that day. And then a couple of weeks later, we got the bill. And at the time, the university cost between $27,000 and $28,000 per person per year, which sounds like a bargain, I'm sure, today. I don't even know what it is today. I don't want to know. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I don't want to know. But one of the reasons that I can stand here with the opportunity that I've had is, of course, because I worked hard like all of you did. Our families worked hard like our families always do. But also because there were Pell Grants, and there were Perkins loans, and there were Stafford loans, and there was federal work study so that Joaquin and I could work while we were here at Stanford. This country, and everyone in this room, I think, is a living example of this. Our nation has always been at its best when it matches hard work with meaningful opportunity, no matter the color of your skin, or what your last name is, or how long your family has been in this country. or how much money your folks have or don't have. And as we stand here today in 2019, one of the things that we know is that that recipe for success in our country is more important, more crucial than it ever has been. A few years ago, I was visiting the city of Chennai in the state of Tamil Nadu, India, on Republic Day, January 26th. And as I stood by a couple of military officials and we watched the military parade go by, one of the officials told me that there were more than 400 engineering programs in the state of Tamil Nadu alone. And it was a very powerful reminder that today the United States is competing and collaborating with nations around the world that are producing just tons and tons of young people that are smart and ambitious and intelligent and creative and hungry and prepared, that are going to create the ideas and the movements and the companies that are going to define prosperity and progress in the years to come. And that in this world, that we literally don't have a single person to waste. We need everybody's talent. And what that means for our country is, of course, that we need to make fundamental investments in things like universal pre-K. And we have to pre-K and continue to improve K through 12 education so that everybody can get a good education and have the kind of opportunity that we've had. And that we can have universal higher education because jobs require more skill and more knowledge than ever. A few weeks ago, I was reading an article from 1978, a blurb about something that then Governor Brown, who was governor back then too, as you all remember, had said. He was saying that they might have to impose tuition at the University of California system. These things that sometimes are considered radical today really are just a reflection of the kind of investments that we used to make, both in the state of California and in states like Texas and others across the United States. But at a time when many folks who looked like we do didn't have the same kind of opportunity to participate. A few did, and those were truly the stars of their time. Some of you all are here today, but many more did not. But now in this time, when we need to ensure that we can lift everybody up, it's important to make those kinds of investments once more. It also means that we need an immigration system that can harness talent from around the world, of course, and this university is a great example of that, with people coming from every corner of the globe, but also the talent that we have here, of our dreamers, who are intelligent and hardworking, delivering so much value to our country. It means also that in this 21st century, Latinos and Latinas can be some of the greatest assets that our nation has. Think about it. A community that is young, a community that is hungry, that is ambitious, that is fast-growing, a community that is bicultural, that is bilingual, that is all over the United States. Recently, I had some good Mexican food in Iowa. This community can be one of the biggest assets that we have to succeed, to outcompete other countries in the decades to come. So I came here today to both congratulate you, to say felicidades. I know that there are many people here who have been role models, both within your own family, in your profession. There are folks here who have succeeded in business, in public service, in the sciences, in engineering, in tech, in the arts, in education, all across the board. The stories that we could hear if everyone was given the opportunity to tell of their own journey. But I also came here to challenge you. I came here to challenge you, as we saw so many voices speak up in that video, to continue to use your talent, your resources, your time, and your effort to ensure that the same kind of opportunities that we've been blessed with in life are available for those coming behind us. Because too many times it seems that even though we've taken a couple of steps forward, others seem determined to make sure that we take a step back or more. The times feel divided. The leadership feels as though it's trying to narrow opportunity instead of expanding. And so it's up to all of us who have had the blessing of that opportunity to push back. And I know that in many ways I'm speaking to the choir, because folks here have, in their own profession, gone out of your way to make sure that you mentor younger colleagues. You've become members of professional associations or led those associations that are fighting for more access, more inclusion, more opportunity. You have dedicated your careers in academia to researching how we can progress further. I grew up with a mother who was active in the Chicano movement of the late 1960s and early 1970s. My mother had gone to 12 years of Catholic school and then another 4 years at Our Lady of the Lake University in San Antonio, another Catholic university. And by the time she got out of there, she was a hellraiser. She joined the Young Democrats, and then eventually she joined the Raza Vida Party in Texas. She was part of the Chicano movement, and in 1971 she ran for city council on a slate called the Committee for Barrio Betterment. There were 4 candidates whose slogan was, "Give government back to the people." And they were trying to make sure that in San Antonio at that time, that simple things like money for drainage so that people's houses didn't flood and little children weren't endangered when it rained hard. Money for streets and police protection, that those things were distributed on an equitable basis in that community, mostly the west side, the east side, and the north side, and the south side of town, which were the heavily Latino and African American communities. At that time, and Bernard will appreciate this, I know your dad would, there were no single member districts. Everybody had to run at large. And so very, very few women or people of color ever won. All of them lost. And my mom was 23, but on election night, one of the reporters from a local newspaper asked her about the defeat. And she said, "We'll be back." So 30 years later, when I was 26 years old, in 2001, I was elected as the youngest member of the San Antonio City Council ever until that time. And I know in my own life from that example that progress doesn't happen by accident. It happens because of the dedicated advocacy, activism, pushing of people across the spectrum. It's not just the people that are marching on the streets or the people that put their face on a campaign poster. It's also folks in the boardrooms, folks in their small business that employ others, do the right thing, people who work in companies who challenge their company to make a difference. Those who run nonprofits that are doing impactful work in neighborhoods across the United States so that opportunity is made real for people that need it. Whatever your talent is, whatever opportunity you have had, I hope that you will use that to help us continue to make progress in this country. And I also hope that you will continue to hold this university accountable for progress too. Like you, I am immensely proud of Stanford University. I think I have something like 5 or 6 t-shirts and sweatshirts, 3 caps. I was so happy to go last year to the Alamo Bowl when it was hosted in San Antonio. So I bought this sweater that I think was a knockoff sweater because it wasn't Cardinal, it was like Christmas red. I looked stupid, but I'm proud nonetheless. But even though we made a lot of progress, as others have said, today the percentage that Latinas and Latinos constitute of the university student body really hasn't risen much in the last couple of decades. Our representation on the Board of Trustees, as well as at places like the Graduate School of Business on the faculty and across other schools is still very much lacking. There was a time when I used to believe it when they would tell me that there were no qualified Latinos or Latinas that could fill certain slots in certain places. I don't believe that bullshit anymore. The superior nature of your work, your qualifications, and so many colleagues that I'm sure you know are testament to that. But that progress will not happen by accident. I want to thank Fred, I want to thank Victor, a number of other folks who are here, who have been on the Board of Trustees and have been moving the university in the right direction, both on and off the board, and also the many voices here who have done that. And I intend to continue doing that. After this meeting, I'm meeting with representatives of the staff and service workers, represented by SEIU, as they get ready to Some of y'all may remember that in 1969, Jorge Gonzalez wrote one of the seminal poems of the Chicano movement called I Am Joaquin. My brother likes to think that he got his name from the poem. But the poem was this sort of meditation on the quandary that a lot of Mexican Americans, Chicanos at that time, found themselves in, of both wanting to participate in American society and yet being shut out, and almost having to choose between being economically successful and being culturally true. The shame of not being able to speak Spanish or having to lose it in order to succeed in society. And the beauty of our generation, for those of us that are Generation X and millennials and younger, is that we really haven't had to make that choice. That you can both keep your Spanish and your culture and also prosper in this country and make sure that others can. But at the end of that poem, it concludes with two lines that say, I shall endure, I will endure. Not only for the Latino community, but for all of the United States, if we continue to do our part to make sure that the blessing of opportunity that we have had is there for so many other people of different backgrounds and different walks of life, in the broadest sense possible, but also true to the Latino community. I'm confident that we'll be able to say in the years to come of the United States of America that not only will we endure, that we will prosper in the years to come. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, y'all.